recite the Heart Sutra first, and then the Super Return of Kyabjilanga Tsupa Rinpoche composed by Kandrula.
So the Heart Sutra is on page 5 of the Pecha. I prostrate to the three noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan. On massive vultures mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories called profound perception. Also at that time the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom. Those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature, then through the power of Buddha the Venerable Putra, send this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. Should any son of the lineage train who wishes to activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, he said that am the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. Send this to the Venerable Sharanvati Putra Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage is the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should look upon it like this correctly and repeatedly beholding thus. It's also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Other than emptiness, in the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, consciousness, I Shariputra, likewise all phenomena are emptiness. Characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Putra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition, no factor, consciousness, no I, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no pain. There is no I element, and so on up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to and including no aging and death, no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and death. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also attainment. Because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear, having completely passed beyond error, the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awakened, surpass the perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra. All suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Dayatam gate gate param gate parasam gate bodhisoham. Dayatam gate gate param gate parasam gate bodhisoham. Dayatam gate gate param gate parasam gate bodhisoham. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. And the Bhagavan arose from that concentration. And did the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara say, Son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Tathagatas rejoice, the Bhagavan having thus spoken, the venerable Sharadvati Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asura, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan.
We'll now turn back to the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche booklet, and we'll be chanting in Tibetan on page 12, a lamenting wail, a supplication for the swift return of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Barangjung Neldroma Khandro Tseringma. Lama Kien, Trechen Sawe, Lama Chen O. Drechen Sawe, Lama Sanchin Gotu So. Nyamta Lobu Soan Inne Daso Tuje Kya O Madurwa. Lama Dusum Sangye Jingelo Keni Kuncha Dewa Chimpunga Maga Usa Yinla Nyamzuna Sechen Tuche Rogarana Sotru Yeshe Gyuchu Dukun Yudrone Sechen Tuje Chunwe Dulaba Jeshin Jeshi Chukyu Yinejin kyulo kulo joe dondo kul kachula so dajin madupar locho zambu linge tendrola lunto tenpa perchir nundo so nyamta joa drenchir nyundon sol daso semchen lobo odobo ngosu jelne gosum jenje lo daso semchen mare zentrugi kusun tu dan chinle lunju la gerchu no dang danse nyampanam kusun tu sel mandu sapat sel tashi kunje tashi cho toni ninje tashi sho lalo nyunje tashi sho gyurme choni dentopki chulme nganse nyodon sho de dansa we kadronge dugne mekche udu de tasun la ye jinge lo changmu donan ru parasho mikja mikje mikyul nam choni dese londu a.
Guru Rena Mandala Sanjin Chedan Tsuji Chonan La Shanju Pardo Dane Jazuji Dagi Chushi Jive Tsonam Jin Jola Penji Sanjin Jubarashu Sanjin Chedan Tsuji Chonan La Shanju Pardo Dane Jazuji Dagi chushi jive tsonam ji Drola pinjire sanjin jubarashu Sanjin chudan tsuji chunam la Chanju pardo dani jasun ji Dagi jesu jive tsonam ji Pinjire sanjin jubarashu Toni ninge zungdan juve lan cheche senze kanjen ten dungun chanan pemo tenzin chanzo Sovan dezo tuyir meshu Aso tea Josi chema Josi Naso tinita Tare 주사 나진다 땡중 차라게 니층안에 아니 타바 톱주여 봐 타바 톱주여 봐 아니 대야양 랑게 톱롱인 봐 텐데 자chen 부지 제네 테니 가르주고 그러고다 맞아 수수기 미세 대당 테니 nangba sanji peji kunju sum laya deda rewa karendu tene kunju sum laya de ane ta chu kunju ane sanji kunju chu kunju kindu kunju tezo samala ta lama za chimbo namba je che namba chinse rewa ina yangde tabada ichi tezo ngane di kala zawa nangji chene da heru yangjar ngazu yugoya tang 장고야 당 쌈고야 당 임바 송장 de 가리주고로 다 짭 뭐만데 아니 추군주 임바데 ngochu 아니 추군주 덤바보데 아니 짭드니 산지군주 짭 뭐만데 추군주 아니 추능네다 전주기 있습니다 돈이 따와 안 되는데 종주기 뭐지라 추군주 송장 티티니지 ngazola jawgiro
So here in this returning to the text, within this kind of subtle, the presentation of subtle dependent origination, we first need to recognize that we are able to attain the state of liberation and omniscience, that this is possible, that on the basis of this human life, this precious human rebirth that we have the ability to attain such a state. And we need then to understand the sort of connection between our own life and ourselves and the three jewels of refuge, the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. So these really are all like manifestations of the Lama appearing in these different forms. We kind of make these distinctions. And this is something that we need to train our minds in again and again, develop this kind of faith and conviction based upon repeated contemplation. And so here, the actual refuge is the Dharma. The Dharma acts as what really is able to protect us. The one who teaches that then is the Buddha. But this really inseparable bodhicitta and emptiness, this union, this inseparable nature is the thing that is able to protect us. We need to have a kind of understanding of the nature of refuge based upon our contemplation.
태양 소소수나지 아니 다자지 뜸버름부지 로이나 되니 지 가지고 정보 로발람 예네갑라니 직도와 대송장 당번이 양직 상 제제한 저다 가지고 다지 양데 다 제발 몸보다 여러와 다 지당로 시바이나 다 가서 상지 지롱 인비지 차니 다 직슈바이나 되니 산진 좀 된디야 아니 당보 동행디 아니 만두베 빵주여봐 아니 근중당 되지디 제네 강다를 쌍랄류 산지지 아니 쩐상마로 마상 쩐디지기 철바 동행여와 영장 아니 디마상 딩가서 지고라 무슨 디고기도 아니 디가서 동행 조고여와 제장 산지지 들이 낭도와 다 연대 제세 송용대 되네 연대이리 참바당 제와당 닝제당 삭삼당 즈바 라 속바지 진라 핀데 되어지 심 짜침보 심 겐침보 딘디기 아니 톱 제용류 연대 용수 조바 직제 탁버틀라 jamninji chanjugi sem 타입이 semjen 탐지 랑다 직송 동해 만들어 대바한데와 되니 동해라 제주여와 대바 토브룽 임바 감디시니 뭐여와 직바 앙지 마릭바다랑 진지지 찡대와 직바 대매와 줘야라 되니 남의 도구이지 시럽당 아니 진진기 로기 뉴문 용수 쪽바 똑단 대명안에 매바 줘야기 답이 용수 쪽바 여와 창마지 아니 지준도와 딩가 졸라 톱단 찍버린도와.
So here in terms of how we proceed along the path, most of us meet initially with a teacher. We have to be able to learn from someone what it is that we should develop, the kind of path that we are entering. And so we need to understand, as the Buddha explained to us, what is the nature of suffering, and also come to understand that suffering is something that can be removed, that can be eliminated. As the two syllables of the Tibetan word for a Buddha, this first syllable, sang, has the sense of having purified, eliminated all faults, and all of the kind of suffering feelings that arise from those faults have been eliminated. This is what we need. We need to develop that kind of elimination, or get rid of those kinds of faults. And in addition, the person who is then able to give us the knowledge, guide us through the process of eliminating such faults. This is what we find in the Buddha. And then from the side of developing qualities, a Buddha has developed to their full culmination all qualities of love and compassion and bodhicitta, the kind of altruism, wish to benefit others, patience, and so forth. And so here, this kind of attitude of wishing to be able to attain that state, we see that we as sentient beings, infinite sentient beings, are just like we are. They all wish to have happiness, and none of them wishes to suffer. They all also have this Buddha nature, the potential to become completely enlightened. But we are likewise, ourselves and all other sentient beings, infinite sentient beings, bound by our self-cherishing and our ego grasping. And it is this being that, like a Buddha, who is able to show us the way to eliminate all of those faults and the way to develop all good qualities that we should model our own path after.
Yang che che la du sik de che ngo zedang mambu shu zi yorwa nang ba rang ni ni na pe ra zi na ta ji ji dang ge ji gi na che che la du yang ji cha che ya korwa che ya kandun che ya lama che ya ni korun ro ya deni ji chang sa ya den de ji la 다 최인반 저지잔저 다지 가지고 다 미잖아 다지 마치 안 되는데로 지라 최인비 소리지 자기로 다디 고 롱아 이숨이 소남사야 류진고는 소남사야 나인고는 소남사야 이진고는 소남 차트윤소야 대만보지 지tun이 레기 소남사야 소남이 rig만보지 여들어와 대짜침보러와 개체주인데 최제 라두 아니 저주 딴 거야지 아니 수인 두바이나 따와 친질로야 쩌빠 친질로 돼야 돼. 네 저주 딴 거 인정 최라를 거라 다지 거든 찍은 거는 쩌슬란 맞어 강이 여비 샘지 동이 여비 샘지 뒤다 넘바 군도 동이 나 쩌대인데 아니 따와 간디스 논주임바 따와디 친지 말로 아직 또 송와이나 아니 타르바스 따따위 친지 말로 와 니중하니 대양 친지 말로 와라리고 와 니주된란 판네 덴제 쭈쭈 라는 메바지 또 용도 되나라 강동에 여봐 동행다 동행기 초로봐 되니 동해 아니 디지 준제 용수 저버디 띵중응하네 땜바 뜨바 체비 니중하네리만도 랑진 주바 아니 땜바르 주바 드르 잠지 메바 항직라 맞추기 땜바 진바 아니 땜바 주바 딘디기 진바 아티기 아니 찡데디는 데라 당지 마릭바 세 디송용도 나 디니 중간에 할래바지 고 가진 지적으로다 덤ring보 논주 첨보 롭중지 제바이나 낭바랑니 너이나 지치자 마완도데바 셈자와 오마 랑주바 탄주르바 세 데님바 거라 가르주고로다 지 따와라 차차 메바이나 똑시 최진이 니중간에 차라 몽부지기 니중간에 때니 대참말로 장된다 내된다 뭐지 따집시네 어이 니스 때는 팜니 탈뚝 최코랑 기랑이 예 아니 베테 뭐이 니주데 강도 반데라 데니 타르바 아니 송용도 근데 또 용도 아니지 가서로 타르바디 수수기 또 용나 데니 겐두군조 라야디야 수수기 텐지 제외 연대 짜침보직 유다 유진이 강의 니주인바 춘이 랑진도바 들점매바 로이 파다점 세점 ngani yongsu zoba shajan denji ngosu susugi aninji longda rikpe ngani to nyamnyung cheme ngani ngosu juta jikdo yongna teni gendu kunjo cha yongorwa lobe gendu kunjo di chamang gaso pomo suda zina 아니 그 제초야 당 중중 톱단 찍바 찍차더라 쇼켈레나 말이나 딘디지 중나 다 남이야 동에 줘야 되게 짜와니 매와 인장 매와 줘와 인장 되니 뭐 자침부리도 잡순조절 가서 동일이 잡 다 동이게 짜와대도 당지 마르 바이니 당지 마르 바이지 아니 박차다 제바 다 한다 현재 마르바 라디 아니 님보 톱다 템비 ngani 좀 용는 되나라 직바 용수 저거 텐저드 아니 잡아리 심진 창문로 딩원에 되니 그 동일에 잡아 인자네 잠조 아니 대야 라나메 봐 니가 많이 봐 탈뚝 용수 저봐 차용도 대 인자네 딘디기 자침보데 줄레 줄을 견두군주 디니 칼레디 독조 용수 줘봐라 사주 랑아저 딘디 야 쳐봐라 디니야 디 상만 심진 탐지라 카파베나 아닌지 첨보레 대와 심진 탐진 아니지 감 대신님보 제배 연대인데 여대와 찍봐 뭉추응 안에 낭추 니추 마추응 안에 출발 여봐 내가 닝지제야 아니 니게 출네 준제기 니추응 안에 방제라 되니 닝지제야 안디 참말로와 아니 mikpamewe rangji jumandabu 아니지 착차다부 덴데게 가져르다 준줄 임바디야 거라 닝지 체메바 제한도와 덴데게 덴데직라 차당게 로게 뱀미시 독주기 창나 이 찡데와 덴데게 간데 찡완단다 항다름 고 파로데 파카줄루 닝지 뱀미시 자침부 제대야 안 로데 랑이 출라 수 대용도 되나라 아니 가져로다 지 남중가서 인중제고래 인중제고라다 인중 넘버 타바시베 푼소 용수 쪽바 자침부 제대야 용수 쪽바 내가지 부글라 지리 제라 지리 제바 당신 잠들이만도 되니 수수기 뱀미시게 자침부당 짭다그뿡 레도 제사이다 잡니 수직면도 디 여바디 다 전죽습니다. 돈이 자와 디잉하니 시토니 인중 라나 메바지. 인중 라나 메바지에 될라 시럽 라나 메바지도. 시럽 라나 메바다 인중 라면 라나 메바 디니 진진이 테니 닝덥체 뭐 전죽이 쌤 라는 딘리기 자진지기 오니 당아 장부디 냠슬레 이버라.
Yeah. So, do my best here. When it comes to doing the Dharma, we talk about practicing the Dharma, and here in the context of like the Buddha Dharma, we can think of many different activities of like making prostrations or circumambulations or offerings and so forth, counting our mantras and so forth. All of these activities of our body, speech, and mind, there's many types of virtuous or meritorious activities. that we can engage in. And so here, the most sort of important when we talk about Dharma and really what the practice of Dharma is about, this word Dharma has the sense of transformation, of change, of really trying to first understand the kind of view and behavior that we have, the wrong view and the wrong behavior, and in turn transform that. So we first begin by understanding the way in which we experience all kinds of suffering, what those suffering experiences are like, and see how it is that it's due to our distorted view, our mistaken view, that we act in ways that bring about our suffering. They all arise in dependence upon our engaging in particular kinds of conditions. And although things appear to us to have this kind of like real, true, concrete existence, when we actually investigate, we can see that there's not even an atom, not even the smallest particle of that kind of true, real existence in the way that we perceive things. And when we study, like often the kind of studies that we proceed through, it seems as though there are many different levels of subtlety. We go through the study of the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika and the Chittamatra and the like all the way through the Madhyamaka and the Prasangika and so forth. And really, in terms of the subtlety of these views, this has to do with kind of the sort of conditional or interpretable meaning and or provisional meaning and definitive meaning of things. But they all are actually sort of getting at the real nature of things in different sort of giving us different methods to understand that things don't actually exist in that true, real way that we perceive them. And when we come to have an understanding, a realization of that lack of true existence, it becomes liberation. Those who are then practicing this, engaged in the practice of developing such an understanding, are the members of the Sangha, those that are sort of like guides or companions along the path. And so here, this kind of realization that we can gain through investigating the nature of things as being contingent, dependent, only arising due to the coming together of various causes and conditions, that kind of realization that then leads us to transform or transcend our suffering, get out of our suffering. The one who has those who have been able to affect that, or those who are pursuing that path, are the Sangha. And that is why we come to see them as being so precious. So whoever we are, no matter what kind of being we all have the same sort of like right, the right to happiness, the ability to achieve an elimination of suffering. And really, that is something that is so incredibly precious. We consider these things the objects of refuge because they can protect us in the sense of protecting us from the kind of sufferings and fears that arise due to our innate ignorance. And it's not just sort of our temporary sufferings or difficulties, but rather all ultimate suffering and difficulty that these objects of refuge can protect us from. And so here we get into, you can see various presentations of the various paths and grounds and so forth. These can get very extended. But this is something that we ourselves are able to traverse based upon our understanding of the path. And when it comes to then looking at all other sentient beings, we extend not just recognizing this to be our own situation, but all sentient beings are in the same situation of being confused, being deluded with respect to the way that things appear and the way that they actually exist. And when we come to see that other sentient beings don't have the sort of true existence that we impute on them, nothing has that kind of true existence, we see them as being sort of illusion-like, like echoes, like not having the real solid, concrete existence that we ascribe to them. This allows us to develop limitless compassion, sort of unsurpassed compassion. We see how they are bound within samsara due to that self-grasping and that self-cherishing. And it's like they're in this kind of prison. So it is on the basis of developing our own kind of wisdom that we give rise to this strong sense of renunciation, of coming to see that like everything within samsara is sort of like the way that a child enjoys a candy. There's immediate kind of satisfaction from that, but not really long term. And so here it is within the state when we develop that kind of a limitless compassion or sort of unsurpassed compassion and wisdom, our renunciation likewise will become unsurpassed. And when we have that kind of level of renunciation, of seeing all of this as being like a prison, our in turn compassion grows stronger and stronger. So this is the way in which we are able to develop such qualities based upon seeing them in those objects of refuge.
라서 된대게 되니서서 군주 숨 줘야 돼. 아니 자침보지게 당보 가르쳐로다 람기네가 아니 되니 수수기 디비네가 지네가 람네가 디비네가 상망로라 수수가 간스 직 가르쳐다 윤된데 레야라 가르치고도 디 당보 산지 가르송도 공 가르쳐도 디 토네 수수기 잡 드라이나 다 자침보 자차서 로 딘디 산지 군주 최 군주 아니 겐디 군주 산지 군주 라운데 되나라 된 밀로비지 최 셰샤디 아니 군주 전다바니 찍샤스 통이 되절라 레옹루 사람 용서버 전저르니 가르쳐로다 밀로비 겐디 산지 군주 찬로도 다 디야 차당 야부 공부 제바이나 다 가서 단다 당진 찍찍더래 디마 드바토그마소는 디추 마토바이나 되니 강 제바데 랑드마도 진들 해야 돼 기면 내려도 데 빨리가 그래도 진들 로 당진 찍와이나 덴버진바 딱든진비 로지 덴버진 로지 차당이 로지 아니 같이 짜침보 세바이나 랑조 nga 짜침보 ngai 짜침보 라야시 니츠지카네 아니 고 로데 충충 슈즈 고 따와디 직 따도 메발라 딱도 지네 제가 송장 수수기 심바데야 직 자와치바이나 제야디 미유 빼줘 아니 직 수수직보 야무나 낭미 야무나 딜레 체전로 제와이나 파유직바 아니 뭐셔봐 아니지 딜레 딱 체전로이나 랑이 작업 디 마임바 다 차도와 되니 다 딘디기니 중간에 수수 심디 따위 차네 영수 줘봐 mikpamewa delagi mikye ye chue chamalowa ani jindang ngunge yengang chadang lo de shiwala rangcho jibola ani samdang de na ti shiktu marwa te tayon su zobo ye ni chu ngane ani tawa jachimbo ji chuni yi machaba khangya do chöje yewa desitola chuni yi chapde do ngaso dongbani zoya de saba zogoya dang 직니 직믹세 직체고야 계셔면 거 랑진 강인바데 그러나 최 탐지지 일로 가지마데 난기 심 치르지 최 용수 줘봐지 거기 너는 저 일로데 뒤따도 남바 근데 여진비 일로데 nga 정은 저 제거르마도 맞아지 아니지 가르쳐로다 탑시 지라바 직전에 싸바 죽주인 지하다 아니지 제설 쟁가 지금 말아 그런 춘이 따스도 뱀미시 짜침볼 최진지 여바 대시돌라 춘인지 여대로 랑진디 춘인데 통소나 나서게 강에 제사데 춘인데 마통 아니 최진 될라 때네 대차 세당 띠묵 낙심 내심 록다 차도 참말로 아니 주민시시 남도 이쪽다람 출당은 된디도와 되니 고 랑진게 군접 고랑 주만다부 임바데 하마고 덴바 짐바 덴진 직출 덴진 줄 맞에 될 조다네 추미지 남도지 젠체네 아니 마임발라 힘바다네 줄라 아니 백하세 탁발레 주다와 능신체네 유데라네 짜바니님 매바 지경 전도체네 대샤시다는 제단 직차되기도 와 딱 거라 강군조 위어바디 양 낭출라 템버 주바즈 낭르데 니출라 템버 마임바즈리도 딘리기 출당니도 그래서 야 산다나 당가서 오늘 세미톤 산다나 밀로 깨보이나 세미도니 보고 치바든 저거 차기도 주당이 니승하네. 아야.
So here, when it comes to the three jewels of refuge, we need to sort of understand how we relate to them or they apply in the context of the basis, the path, and the result. So how is it that we take up these qualities based upon understanding the kind of preciousness of the qualities of the three jewels? We then are inspired to take them up ourselves, to pursue that kind of path. So when we see then that this ultimate, the mind of omniscience, in which conventional truth and ultimate truth are directly seen within a single mind, this is something that is incredibly precious. This is a state beyond suffering, and it is also something that we ourselves are able to achieve. Right now, we are bound by our self-grasping. And as long as we have that kind of grasping at true existence, and we have this thought of I and mine, we are going to give rise to all of our various afflictions, which in turn bring about our suffering. So when we grasp on to things as having some kind of a self, on that which doesn't actually have a self, and in particular, when we have that kind of self-grasping and then a sort of self-cherishing attitude, our view becomes very narrow, very small. We only think about like me and my family or my people, maybe my country, but we really don't have this kind of vast and expansive view. And within that state, we're actually grasping at things as truly existing in a way that they don't actually exist. That mode of grasping doesn't accord with reality. And so when it comes to understanding the view, we first have to understand how our view currently is mistaken, the way in which we grasp at things as having this kind of true or real existence. And so when we come to understand emptiness, it's not as though emptiness is something that is created. Rather, this nature, this dharmata, this is the nature of all phenomena. It pervades, it exists in all phenomena in a way where it doesn't need to be applied or newly created, but rather it is something that if we are able to realize that, we can get freed from our suffering. This is the kind of real nature of all phenomena that we ourselves, if we can understand this, we go beyond all of the kind of minds that come from that fundamental grasping at a self. When we have that grasping at an I, that ego grasping, we then give rise to all of these various afflictions of attachment and anger and jealousy and pride and malice and stinginess and so forth. And so by coming to understand the way in which we are mistaken, that we're holding something to be really truly existent in a way that it doesn't actually exist, like holding a striped rope to be a snake. It's not just that we have that kind of mistaken perception, but also that our sort of discursive thinking embellishes, reifies these kinds of things, creating a kind of stronger grasping and in turn giving rise to our various afflictions. So we're within this state where appearances, things appear, conventionalities appear, but they appear as though they were truly existent in a way that they don't actually exist. When we come to understand this kind of presentation, it actually helps us to understand the preciousness of the three jewels based upon an understanding of the view.
So, dinida tawa di chinji malona any jebe kara. Tadi lojung lana lojung ya. Ani da ngazu joba ta chimbo zoya chidurwa. Ta joba de yang ngazu yabo zsamdan yang joba de susugi nga zone nga jibo 된다라 제바이나 nga스네 지리 옌스는 타요바레 데나지 참아 깡지기 아니 괜히 좀이나 충용마도 괜히 좀 두고 말아 참아 망보지 괜히 좀나 배 고장마 야보시 두고도 데나 얘기 아니 심전 탐지 자 자와 망보삼 당도 심전 탐지 동네 만들봐 찍봐 아니 대화되봐 찍봐 랑다 베르지나 전주기 심장을 데 마시 진제다 다시 냠지지로 장수니 돈에 칼세고래 마시 진제스나 다시 냠지스나 칼세고래 디소소소 능바사바 면장 딱지 야오지 다지 디나네야 주름 디노네 직패바이나 하네 미스 자친 버리샤 마지 진서 요 참발라야 정말로 좀 전에 템버리샤 디 인다이 어디 치고도 와 로야 되는 재미지 로 장단돼서 지 미스 자친 버리 다디 치고도 와 내는 거서 전주선배 쩌발은 중은 바로도 침바드지 파친축대 냠낸 제고 있는데 파친축 레레카도 내는 미스 자친 버리는 와 할리베 시럽지 잡종 지용도 아니 내 티니 내 심지지 내 코르비 내내 타르비 내라봐 바로 인장 바로 드심바 자기도 시럽지 아니 조치 송아이나 시럽지 조 마치와이나 창문로라 수좀 소야 도와 다리 주바 나지 창문도 열어다 지금 저 봐서 창마 도와 대인 원인디다 시럽지 조치 시럽 낭냐 표도 준비 아니 돈이도 비 시럽이 잡된 지용도 되네 오늘 전에 수수기 지 쇠바 제바 있나 쇠바 쪽으로 봐 많이 봐 안가도 지 쇠바 쓸라도 지 두금 무금 잡지 제제제제 꼬직 싸싸싸 딜라 직사니사 되니 유도도 니만이 저 쇠바 제인 다 쇠바 지나 춘 디기면도 니 같이 야고 싶는 저랑 나 두루 저차 다 지금 와서 라와 디니 쇠바디 두금무금시 싸줘디 찍셔용도 추셔봐 나진치도 나 소소 쇠바디 정말로 디 레바논이야 셈논이야 짱잡아마도 그 쇠바 냠내 야고도 제 도구면도 내가 내고 쇠바 제와이나 아니 쇠베지 갈소로다 직대 콘트롤랑와지 땡데서 내용도 콘트롤 줄 내용도 아니 당신 말이 왜 예유 아니 콘트롤이 님이 아니 가서 랑진지지 폐 가서리 님 이제 진지지 폐 니리 있는 순간에 저발라 슉 잼니 슉 쳐보도와 대나지 아니 짐바 대나지 짐바 있나 오늘 짐바 수수지 짐바 땅에 있나라 장생이 짐바 있나 최지 짐바 있나 짐바 땅에 있나 그거 양 디칸다 지요 방구리 풍대와 대당 아니 지 가리나다 지 방구 릭 망보 용거와 방구 롱대야지 방구 직당 되는지 양 방구 저와 여대와 디디 다 직대나다 다니데 딱 말와 지 담다 민다 지 전원롱주 창마 여대와 랑 디 요보 짠짠 민다 빼샤 요보 짠짠 그러니 방구 방장시네 랑 집어 추는 면줘서 그렇고 방구래도 방구를 니 용기도 강들 니 참아 시비 돈은 제와 있나 아니 파친축디 턴다 덴바요 아니 냠내 턴다 덴바요
So here, if our view is mistaken, then likewise our conduct is going to be mistaken. And so here it is based upon having that unmistaken view that our conduct can then become good. So here, if we are really only thinking about ourselves and this I, really that's such a small kind of a limited view. We are just one person, and this I, our needs and so forth are so small in comparison with infinite sentient beings. It's like if we are trying to clean a room and we just pick up one piece of dust and like put it in the trash can, we haven't actually done very much. Whereas if you're able to sweep with the broom and get all of those kind of pieces of dust, we actually clean that up. And so too, it's the case that our own needs are so small in compared with the needs of infinite sentient beings. And when it comes to developing this attitude of like love and compassion, bodhicitta, there are various methods that we employ, and these methods are backed by reasoning. Reasoning and experience is what allows our practice of the equalizing and exchange of self and others, or the sixfold method of generating bodhicitta, to really become powerful. powerful. When we use reasoning in order to establish that these are possible, or really seeing the benefits and faults of something, we see if we go through the reasonings of, say, seeing all sentient beings as having been one's mother and recalling their kindness and so forth, that kind of mind becomes something very precious when we actually understand the reasons behind it. And we see like, oh, the four immeasurables and things like bodhicitta, these are so precious, I should give rise to this within myself. And when we have this kind of engagement, when our practice and engagement is based upon this kind of understanding that we're using reasoning in order to back up what it is that we are practicing, this is where our practices become really transformational. We call them the practices of the perfections. Like other traditions practice generosity and ethics and patience and so forth, but those become the perfections when they are held by that wisdom realizing emptiness. When they're backed up by that kind of wisdom, they become incredibly powerful. Like if we try to practice patience, but we don't have good understanding, we don't really have reasoning behind that. Although we try to be patient with people, we're going to end up like losing our patience, or sort of like thinking that there isn't benefit to it. Maybe we might expect that like if we're patient once, we should get something from that. But if we understand the nature of the way that things are, if we are actually able to see that all of those people that get angry with you, that are in turn causing you harm, they are under the control of their self-grasping, their own self-cherishing, we're able to then develop our compassion and actually develop a practice of patience. It is based upon seeing the benefits of cherishing others and seeing the faults of our kind of self-cherishing attitude. They were actually able to develop that within ourselves. And so here, having this kind of reasoned understanding when it comes to the way in which we practice these is really sort of important. There are many, like for example, beggars in the world, many that we can give to. But if we have a kind of generosity that is backed by the wisdom realizing emptiness, that's what makes it transformational.
라서 되니 다수 소소기 미지 임비차네 소소기 딱 꼭도 마주봐 소소 이제 쌤들 간다져요 봐 소소 하고 그러와 해송장 되니 다 전주기 쌤 라야 돼 가르즈레샤 아니 틱바침보 라야 돼 가르즈레샤 아니 배 닝도 피도 중아 배 짜침보린도와 타이베 쌤제라 genki 되니 자침부 쉬브지기 응응니 된리기 타입의 쌤진 탐지 mikpamebe pete chambada tsevelozi leyungdu ane dila dribuwa tachimuchi di mache 강다라 전죽semji peyu 아니 랑진진기 님이 야보 직삼단 오 디 오네 ngal 거기도 ngache 최켈레나 말레나 디 semba 장부디 디지 용수조바 디테기도 semba 장부디 미 셈 장보다 미 장보저요나 참 가기로와 제이나 가기래 참말로 마카바 수요래다 semba 장보라 전주기 셈 제벨로라 용수조바 가기로와 계송자 제벨로데 컨디스 제고도 누바 괜침부지 제벨로데라 파추 제닌데 되니 차당일로 되저래도와 차당일로 되즈디 아니 매바 치발라 제벨로 찍보지 매바 제투기면도와 차당일로 돼 짐바 아니 따와 친질로 돼인데 매바 줘야디 계침부래도와 따와 띵중 레라디 되니 그 제나라 레바 인장 아니 그 죽두바 매바데 다 주어버와 데 양자 빼 계침부래샤 양자 제나다 베라지나 ngazu 최진년로 오르지나 랍도 중원데지나 다지 코르바 청사제야단 티주 당분에 빵 되니 최치하러 공발치네 공발되라 당부 아니 지 소소기 직바디 아니 체마 제나 남살남사 이 최초주 마임바 아니 지 데이나 데인초그래 데이나 데인고 그래슬라네 아니 장된다 내된다 아니 지 마모지기 로이노나 아니 로르 체마 티주데 자침부들이 지기도와 베라지나 지도가 마서나 안다 야보 저 다른 봐 너무 야보도 선에 아니 네 야보 제자네 되네 되네 아 파치 엄마 셀라디 파치 라데네 전주기 쌤 엄마 되줘도 따용도 전주 따와 친지 말로 어디 가르래도 아니 로 채마리 빠 짜진보 중보 추 말로 위지 로디 아니 우리 니주지 셰샤데 가래 디지 나기도와 제마 되니 저로 파치 날루 전주기 쌤 아니 자침보 랑 찍보 있었는데 아니 뭐고 그니 배tuk자 임바 다 입에 쌤진라 아니 배 믹대야 돼 아니 쌤딩 개침보 자침보 아니 가져오다 라나메 버지리던도 대송전에 전주기 쌤 라야 되게 대화 용수 쪽바 제니 니갑다 타도 단딜라 아니 파치 엄마 중가병아 따라 되잖아 덴드르한디 인지민이 저와 아니 제나 고바지 아니 저와 아니 마치나 먹어 말어봐 가서 동네 만들어 찍봐라 내가 내가 찍봐라 가서 거기로 참아 거기래 참아 제 돼야 이러 성을로 단 덴드지기 니츠 낭베지 찌용게 덴드지기 가져로다 지나게 예와 아니 군조숨기 라야 돼 연된 가르치 정도 아니 군조숨 줘야 돼 가르샤 간르스 짜우게도 아니 대발이나 당면 대바 응은득이 대바 이 집에 대바 숨이 나네 숨겨야 청월라 다지 이 집에 대바 되려나 아니 그 당면 대바다 응은득 대바대 슉 용기로와 당면 대바다 응은득이 대바 되려나 이 집에 대바대 용해 가고로와 이 집에라나 고 최청만 다리 다 장무동반이 땡을 파야 그러와 내뚝이 니수 셰샤 용서 써봐 아니 야보지 하거나 아니 테니 이치치나 이치 대바드 직성아 다 디상기 드럼니 슈짜지라 이치베 대바데 뺨미시 개침부리 들어와 가도 될라 로종지 냐는지 제바이나 이치베 대베토네 아니 로종지 냐네 준주기 냐네 대수지 제바이나 소소이 제토바죠 제 님바죠 대마동에서 잡수체 송자치 뭐 시부들이샤 레레 전주선미기 꼴 퇴용하다 돈이 꼴 퇴용하디 학벌도 전주선미지 꼴 퇴용는 할레베까지 지용으로 와 다침부리 잡수치 야고도 나다 대용사 말이 태양지 레기로 와 조선 짐바기 갑도 섭다 요 말어 봐단 짐바데도 칼레 매와줘야지 데스 낭바 하거나 네 당한 낭바치고도 당원에 야고도 나와대 땡중레샤데 점젠도 시샤 창말로라 땡중원에 용어 조진 니중안에 용대버라 땡원에 야고도 이나야 꾼조숨 라야 될라 점젠도 점젠시당 먹어도 와 당하지네 낭바치체 타 낭바치야라 라마 양타와지 땡고도 와 라마 마 시샤라千年 빼먹어요로 신년 빼먹어요로 다 시에네 퇴와 제니 망보 시와 제니 망보 곰바르 제니 뇽뇽 라 곰네 되네야 지 검지 제니 칼레 퇴 삼론도 삼중지 과니니 곰 되네 저지 과갈 슉답 슉게 아니 칼레 저미지 과한다 야 돈은 아니 가진지기로 가서 단다 손에 제나서 just 내가 정말 가리나 찍 톱샷 통은 just 가진 지기도 딜러 빼 드나 찍는 공상 찍만 되면도 톱샷 찍 통은 네 가진 제대로 다 타르바도 통은 가진 제다지 티 마동 인자네 가진 제 갖고도
So we know our own individual minds. Our minds are not like a hidden object for us. We are able to see what is happening in our mind. And we need to begin by having this kind of understanding, like understanding what is bodhicitta, what is love and compassion, and how do we generate these kinds of attitudes in such a way as we are not grasping at the objects as being truly existent. If we are able to generate this kind of cause, what sort of result will come about? So it is based upon this understanding of things as being dependently originated and seeing the kind of benefits and faults that we ourselves take up a practice. So whether we accept some kind of dharma or religion or not, we all can see the benefit of having a kind heart and having a good heart and having truthfulness, honesty. When you are someone who embodies the qualities of love and compassion, everybody likes that kind of a person. This sort of attitude is something that brings benefit. We can establish this directly for ourselves, that having that kind of like a good heart and a kind heart, being honest and so forth, are qualities that cause others to like us, to have affection for us. But it isn't the case that just an attitude of love can overcome the kind of wrong view that causes our fundamental suffering. Rather, we need to understand how it is that we are wrong in our view, coming to an understanding of what is it that is interpretable in the Buddha's teachings, what is it that is definitive that we can take at face value, and using our own reasoning, investigation, and analysis based upon kind of going through in a way where we are looking at these texts with a connection to ourselves, but also establishing them with valid reasoning. It is in this way that we make our own kind of wisdom really sharp and penetrating, such that we can come to an understanding of the way that things actually are. It is based upon our own development of wisdom that we can come to this understanding of the view of things as being dependently originated, as not having any kind of solid, real existence. And it is within our potential to understand the way that things actually are. So when we talk about the practices of the perfections, bringing these kinds of qualities to their culmination, it is, again, based upon wisdom that we understand why such an attitude is so precious. To have this kind of wish for all sentient beings to be able to realize the view, to be able to understand things as dependently originated, as empty, in order to bring them forth from their suffering. When we really understand what that is, this kind of attitude of bodhicitta, we see how precious it is, how it's an unsurpassed kind of an attitude. It is the source, this attitude of bodhicitta is the source of both temporary and ultimate happiness. And so it is, again, based upon this kind of study that we come to actually be able to put things into practice in a meaningful way. It's not just like those who are ordained take up a course of study. They pursue various types of studies through the great texts and so forth. But it's not just for those who have, say, entered the monastery. We all need this kind of understanding that comes from developing our own intellect and wisdom. So we need to know, like, what are the three jewels? What are the qualities of those three jewels? How are we able to actually develop those qualities within ourselves? And there are the three types of faith that we can talk about, a kind of like admiring faith, where we see the qualities of something, or the kind of faith that is striving. We want to attain that state for ourselves. These really are dependent mostly upon having confident faith. Confident faith is built from our own kind of intellect and wisdom. That when we have that kind of understanding that is based upon confidence in the teaching, we can then proceed to engage in the study of the stages of the path and mind training and so forth. And when we are able able to see really with our wisdom that it is our grasping that causes all of our suffering and troubles. And when through our practice we can see that, oh, I'm able to get rid of this grasping. It is something that I can get rid of completely, actually, if I develop my wisdom fully. This is the kind of thing where when our reasoning leads us to a place that accords with reality, our kind of practice can develop more and more. So here, when we are looking to enter the path, we need to have an authentic kind of a teacher, a genuine sort of lama to lead us on this path. And although there are many out there who might explain various things, and there are many that kind of listen, it is much rarer to have those sorts of people who actually put this into practice through meditation. So when we see that for ourselves, liberation is possible, we see the kind of qualities of the three jewels, this reasoned kind of faith is the basis, or should be the basis, for all of our practice, not just a sort of blind faith.
진짜 그바 좀제 망보 지 자침보 지 하고네 남베 추체 아 추디 망보 지다 라마 한다 자침보 때 디니 디 퇴삼세 퇴삼 디니 다 공부를 치용도 양들라 코살홍야라 다추 라야디 람 야고 조다 만조 게베 초다 조다 만조 라야디 다 근원라링이로 다 근원디 해메바 수수기 근원디 해메바 슬라와이나 따와 장보다 쮸바 장보 디기 찌지나 레용 말이야 따와 장보디 하마고나 다 가로 삼주 잠지라와 레메라이드 빼갈래 가고래 빼메시 갈래 가고라 아주 최제비 중년다고 최제 용도되나라 아니지 민기 따당라 통능라 라차보 빼 민기 미기 통사 자치 로렉자 참말로 지 깨자 용야당 아니 민기 직 도나지야다 민기 믹세 통야 체들라 아니지 지기도 디 너가 저기도 디 최지고 말아 니 가르쳐 거스나 랑기 줄라 따와 장부디 쮸바 장부디 아니 코트 잠즈마도 코와 잠지 디펜토그면도 장와 잠기 디펜토그면도 지 디레 제네 수수기 하고와 잠기 디 양양 장네 심디 가서 유모 비심디 마 뒤니 녀크라 제니지 친지로위 로대당 녀크라 제니지 랑진진이 로대니 매바 마주 받을라 가서 전주 쌤다 돈이 따와디 공고도 다디 마곰나 아니 수수기 끌로 예마이나 랑초 지 젠초 니수응아니 초리 체대야 아니 끌로라 야보 통야 아니 직보 제야 직대 용라기 직보 통야라 아니 도나제야 아니지 직보 직대 용라지 아니 체 아니 도로 아니 지게 가지고 다 찾아진진 된 직대 용라지 고 직보다 야보더라 직 통그러와 다 따와 친지 말로봐 쪄봐 친지 말로봐 딘데요나 텔레 직사지 가와요래다 텔레 직사지 둘로다 육체다 차차 징징 되서 이나 아니 참아 말아서 참아 이체전 리도 둘로 그 맛이 가로래 저거 대 맛이 가로래 도치이나 세티나 응치나 코짝서 맛이 왜요 말봐 디칼 때는 레라고도 둘로라만다 야모라만다 그 맛이 가로래 지민다 봉구다 참을 요연의 리고라 디 근식이래 디 직보세나 딱 뱀미시 샴제 할레베 샴제래도 아뭐 그래서 산지 템바신인데 오늘 다시 템바신이 나다 간도지 식송한테 오늘 전 공개 송연주 뜻도 퇴바 여바치 공발라나메 와데 만주바 토네 되니 년달라 가와 직보라 가와 같이 년달라 가거 샘전 탐지 디트르데 랑게 또 그다음 직보세야에 차차 징징 참말로와 샘전 탐지지 니레 좋아놀 깔레잡 럽종잡 덴데 원네 잔니 판마 보고 쇠네 백 같이 쓰네 깔레잡이래 딘데지 용밥지 아니 직보체야 아니 지 차차 징징 체야 체나 능바 산지비 최르베 아 직보 인 체나 뭐라 직사그 말해 백갈래가 버리다. 밤이지. 전juk 쌤이 직접 가야래다. 돈이 다 직접 가야래다. 아니 네 바지샤네. 직보 제야 찾아진 제야 직된 취지 제야 제가 있나? 라마 저이나 딘디 찍라 잡수 줘나. 시기면 돼. 아 시기도. 나를 진 시기도. 오늘 얘 라마 딘디 말해. 저도 참. 잡지서 버리지.每次찍는 육사 짝쇼 강버리다. 장밭 제벨로 검네 자물링텔라 시대 때베 아 진짜 나와래 시대 생다 네 자와도 장게 구승투기 연대노니 바삐 푸가 잠지기 연대래 내가 저지 지엔제네 참제 대 지엔제네 생대 지대지 생다 알아봐라 네 주식제야 미식제야 오죽제야 싼 말에 솔직히 잡초지 안 죽겠지 말에 닌지 마시게 샘제서마 샘다 덴바 인바 인자네 감다 매바 참비제 제바 닌지 침비게 짐바 땅네 아니 자침보 시대생다 라면 도시장 오샤 줄이 요소 오샤 최낭도 괜찮도 아디 당황하는 낭도 같이 취주 자 침보 라면 뭐 보여야 돼 투지 직 삽삽 나로나
So here, then, based upon seeing the qualities of the teachings, if we want to pursue this path, we need to rely upon a precious kind of teacher. And so we rely upon this teacher in a way such that we're able to hear the teachings and contemplate them and then meditate on them. Now here, most of us, or most of the time, we don't necessarily have the right kind of motivation. It's crucial that whatever we do is done with a kind of unsullied motivation, wishing to benefit others. Like if we don't know really the qualities of something, or we're just sort of relying on a teacher because they're like fancy or really impressive or something like that, or we're engaging in the Dharma in order for ourselves to gain a good name or good reputation or something sort of worldly, this is an improper kind of motivation. It's just like sort of putting on a show or putting on a party. We need to recognize that it's not just about sort of coming to an understanding, this just left at an understanding, but we really need to integrate the Dharma into our own mind and into until we get rid of this kind of self-grasping, this grasping and self-cherishing. There's no way to experience real happiness. It is only by removing that kind of self-grasping that we can attain this state, this union of bodhicitta and emptiness, this state beyond kind of suffering. And so when we are as students, wanting to sort of follow follow after a teacher, we shouldn't be kind of like seeking out someone that sort of puts on a show or is very fancy, and we shouldn't be doing our pursuit of the Dharma for the wrong reasons, for thinking about sort of worldly things or our own aggrandizement, our own getting a good name, our own sort of success. But rather, we see today that there are many kind of teachers that are sort of making an effort at like just putting on this show, making things very fancy, but aren't really getting into the actual practice of the Dharma. And so here, my own precious teachers are examples of those kinds of teachers who were not motivated by any kind of worldly concerns, but acted solely out of compassion, like the great Dorje Chang Vajradhara, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who won the World Peace or the Nobel Peace Prize. The real prize is in this kind of attitude that he has, the qualities of his body, speech, and mind that allow his activities to manifest for the benefit and for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so too, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, these are beings who have who have generated these kinds of qualities attain these realizations within themselves and act solely out of compassion, out of love and compassion for all. And so I would encourage you all to follow such authentic kind of teachers, these kinds of teachers that are really motivated and moved out of compassion. And so too, we shouldn't just allow our hearing to remain at that level of hearing, but this is something that is to be integrated, to be put into practice.
Perezna. Japji sobar muchi ndorezina. Ne tane halebe zachimbo. Halebe rendo. Kainsena susugi ngoi nisugi zambling nala da karjuguru ji chokba 같이 좋은 거거든. ngaso semjen zo 이제 랑기 침상 종살라 강인 거래도 다 작합 잠이 나솔라. 검신 잠에 나솔라. 텐디지기 촉바 가수 좋은 거래. 로 찬죽이 씁니다. 돈이 따와디 중나 제야 대 맞추는 디긴 제가 지자로잖아. 제네 갈래 잡들어. 림보체라 딘데 잠블링게 최소 아니 잠깐만 자당 조주 든주는 누가 딘나라 잠깐 레르는 같이 먹으면 돼. 딘데 직된 최지 지진데 창만로 밑에서 로로체 아니 지 빠지 차자 징징세 빠르게 차자노나 빠지 찍고 첨부 드라마다요 쟤는 찍 제거나 좀 제가 같이 쟤도 택바직 지금에와 같이 자지 뭐도 다 림보체나 다 들리지 강바요 말해 림보체나 다 들리지 맞아요 말해 타나 수샤지 쳐와 있나 이윤이 자통야지 수 진다 지수 되지 줘대려면도 랑 딱기르냐 칭장요 말해 진짜 라마야고 진짜 자지 뭐 띠거라 너만 디래요다 나는 매와 참말로 치다 심이 도나 간데 치기도 참말로 제베 장네 셀 마짐겨 말해 샤리 두시지 풍보 파 술이 낭대야 된 것도 찍바라 빠데 진 빠데 생 강라 디니스는 가서 님은 찍니 제거는 배보고 갈라가고 그러와 할래봐 다 디니 semjen 탐제다 오늘 전에 잔죽이 있습니다 돈이 따와 또로 쟤는 쟤네 다 람림 마주노네 짐바 떠야나 다 오늘 전에 로중 람림 용 가병아 쟤도 용수 족바 자상 가래 쪽수 자상 카노나 다 튠진라 가족 공부지에서 오늘 전에 친한 용수 족바래다디 자할 네다 densa 같이 용수 족바 치아마시 충만 망변노라 아니지 가족다 셰라 젠다지야 구숭투 젠다지야 랍제나나 젠다지야 겐소칸나나 젠다지야 코유숭조지야 젠다지야 차다지야 젠다지야 랑기 냥nen지야라 찬죽이 셈 코나 같이이나 간디야 보면 돼. 네 참말로 맥바 매봐. 대 참말로 스미랑 예세비 니수응하나 같이 짜지 무슨도 같이 짜지 무시기도 아마마마마 오늘 전에 타나 남조나라 페조지 대와라 빠때 다 빼차지 감들이 첨부들이 진가서 남조 대 참말로 잠만 자주 빼샤지 오래양 하고 왔다 참말로 대 같이는 계로 그래 네 nange ingla porcho nangdu jachu ta mombu kan lo gre semje mangshu tunro mena yore lung yo zo wala jewa jaya chanju semda tonin tawa de pecha no yo wa songzang nam jundu chanju semda tonin tawa de zo katen ju de zo ma za chi mo re dikbal pa kewa mombu dikbal thanre chi thanre la ya de 당진 de jinjin le ne ji me ba zo chu yo ba yin zang dikba go 땡거는 지리더라. 내 롱다 포바이나. 디지 자고이나. 디 테만 포바이나. 대 상말로 타르비 상변라 여바 인정. 딘디기 꿀레 자치모. 딘디기 자치모 주인도. 자상카날. 대 용수 줘봐. 아니 지난 매. 자베 따이. 장 끝에 건는다 빼 지수스 게요 말. 너무디. 딘디 다데니 소소이 찌찌게 고도라 빼르지나 나를 나 라마 ngazo second chinjab rimbuche ja doji changge deni yongzi rendoa ngma ko khoma deni ko namba so lama mambo jige deni chö jubai ene ko dende jubare ani ko namba so teze tukra yin ne ji second doji chang peungdu lamsa ji kashi yin anda madro base tuk yin ba da sine lamsa yin ju da marane 지 나도 엔젠답지기 니츠윤다지 장네 아니 콩디니 펜 짝바 차와 자순 페제순 미치나라 당아 약슈 딘스 아수수기 ngazu chache layada lamala kujapse lamala tebases layadi sode rangde ichi longi di ma mebazoni di ma tubazoya chedo hinza lama tinjola lama dinanjin dan zamling yo marela ta ngone ta dendere dendi yichigzil jakpa so sung윤이드나 ta susugi ngone dendje masungsa yi 당지 마르바 쳔 달라말라 규잡다 이제다 추엘라 규잡다 이제 대바 덴디지 짬닌데라야 수수기 찍체 마투비기 쳔 딜레 때네 덴디지 롱이 즉톤이랑 다디 당하수 짝바솔라야데 당하수 차야데 항상야 말해 미진다에는 짝바쳐는 솔라이래요 찍치나 몇배 독샤도 라이러 오래 죽으려 아요
I'll try to get all of this. I don't know. So here, meeting with a proper kind of teacher is incredibly precious. To encounter a teacher like our own teacher Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's almost impossible to speak about all of the things that he did and all of the kinds of qualities that he had. I mean, not only did he create many different Buddhist centers all over the world, hundreds of different Buddhist centers, but everything again that he did, all that he taught, all of his activities, really, all of his activities are for the benefit of others, completely motivated by bodhicitta. Lama Zopa Rinpoche didn't have any sort of possessions of his own. He doesn't have a car or a house or these kinds of things that we hold on to as being important. And even though he displayed having our same kind of ordinary these compounded aggregates, whereas we have to say sleep every so often. Lama Zopa Rinpoche would stay up all night just doing prayers and so forth for the benefit of others. So to have met with a teacher such as this is something that is incredibly precious, incredibly fortunate. We can look at all the kinds of ways in which Lama Zopa Rinpoche's activities are all exclusively for the benefit of others. Not only did he act as a donor, a benefactor for the three main Gelug seats, but also many smaller kind of monasteries donating food and other necessities, the kind of benefactor that he was to schools and to hospitals and to all of these things. It's almost like beyond our comprehension. So the kinds of activities of a great master like this are solely coming from a place of this union of emptiness and bodhicitta. And it is based upon recognizing that by having those qualities, they are able to manifest these kinds of activities, that we ourselves give rise to a stronger kind of faith, seeing this undying, relentless bodhicitta that, like, even when, say, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, whatever sort of beings that he encounters, whatever sentient beings, other beings, is solely out of this wish to benefit them, seeing them in this way where he's not objectifying them. He doesn't hold to them as being truly existent, but rather recognizes their clear light nature of mind, seeing all these beings as emptiness. And from within that state, he works tirelessly for their benefit. Like, for example, when he would fly, he would take these huge boxes of texts. And some people would think like, well, why are you going to pay this extra money to carry these things in the plane? Well, because those texts of the Kangyur and Tengyur containing the essence of emptiness and bodhicitta, by flying with those, putting that kind of like out into the wind, into the sky, is with this wish to benefit every single sentient being by those teachings containing that wisdom of emptiness and bodhicitta. And so really, when we talk about why emptiness, or why these things are so sorry. So when it comes to bodhicitta, we talk about as being incredibly, incredibly precious, that it has the ability to purify all kinds of negative activities. And again, it's because of this power of bodhicitta, of shifting away from our self-interest to that wish to benefit others, that we are able to eliminate so much negativity. So here, there are kind of countless qualities. I, as the translator, probably did not get all of the kinds of qualities, but a teacher who has these kinds of levels of realization is able to manifest in whatever sort of needs students may have. It may be that they need like a single sort of word, whatever advice, whatever kind of activities they manifest for us are really for the purpose of eliminating our self-cherishing, eliminating our self-grasping kind of attitude. And this is the way in which we should receive the advice of teachers, is in a way that it really gets at, it cuts at our self-grasping. So that can take on many different sort of modalities or different methods, but all of the advice of such a teacher is really to get at our own self-cherishing kind of attitude and eliminate that. And this really is it's almost impossible to speak about the qualities of such a teacher as this, and to have met such a teacher in this world. We are all very profoundly blessed because of that.
라서 다 딘디지 아니 ngasola 다 mikpi 제나 다다 질랍 주사 라와 있는다 덴데 자침보 덴데 ngasoda lama 아니 덤바 체마 딘주 체마 냠뇽 체마기 자침보 딘데 다 한단 지주비 고급되라 아니 ng수다 수수이 최대시 하고용도 제지도 다 넘바 지고 지양기 니 중간에 잠주 덤바 주야라 속방안에 저니 테니 직진 취지를 만들리 토니 지 수수기 취 측직이 난다 nga 장와 있는다 칸된 제바 있는다 검 제바 있는다 롭종 제바 있는다 그런데 타입이 샘제 탐제도 친지 말로비 따와서 뭐 다리 통사로 와대스 하고 자로 나타 또요 말 하고래 이치 지사이 주진 하고는 만도 되네 하마고는 이치 가르치 꼭 빠시우지 차그러 와 네네 제바 상부 자침보 어디 랑다 연창말로 아니 제 체도인 제네 아니지 소소 저와디 제와이나 같이 최대 제와이나 아니 타르바다 탐지 준비 공부라 주된로 태양 아니 시럽이 지진들어 전주기 심 될라 아니 타르바다 탐지 준비 공부한다고도 아니 네 낭지 소소 다지 간동 계절 된데기 양 최줘야 돼제 제기 시라기 공기면도나 아니 내가 나 한다지 임바이나 아니 소소 네 심전 탐지라 펜토야 체도이 nga 라야디 아니 너무 독숨지 방제 러브르비 찡대와 내가 비기 아니 근접 샤바 잠데 데니 샘진지 턴라 배추 땅야 체들라 부롱한다 레자와 나 촉발라 아니 nga 강이나 페토와 쇼 제야지 수수이 레차와 가르지나 아니 이 샘진 펜도 용한체도 샘진지 또그 담숨 밀라 펜도 용한당 딜런 제바 유비 통니 대바 용하쇼 자침보 용하쇼 장보 용하쇼 펜바 용하쇼 라야지 지 꿀웅 지킨 딘디지 꿀웅데 계속와이나 파르타살라 수수기 내가 지라바 코르 내가 제대 여바이나 아니 그런 장부 디기 찐지미 토네 자와지 지용도 타라 탐지 준비 공방기 아니 줄안 저기도 아니 고텔라 딘디기 그런 장부 직체 정의 제숨 레즈라 다 응의지텔라 아니 다 다니 심진 탐지 니진노레라비 된저 접에서 아니 딱 제발 짐버쇼 심진 탐지를 필요하게 딘데기 낭니 마티바 mambo 체산의 심진라 제바 용아 쇼라야디 덴바레도와 디니 다 강도 수단 조비 체 단니 균이 면답시 젠라 삼바타와에 딱도 딱도 제반 짐바 쇼라야 돼야 되니 용초야지 nga라니 아니 당진텔랑아 소소기 대신 거자네요나 남에도 보시랍 지금 거자네요나 아니 지 강다 수단 조베체 아니 다니 균이 멘다시스라야디 고 멘바절로 수수 독자게 좀 말. 수수기 마 차도 전신 메네 마 냠중치네 근조 장부지 갈래죠. 수수디 지 가서 코사 수수 메바저게 좀 말해. 코사 톰보지리. 할레베. 닝덥 쳔베 코사로 와. 출바 톤. 한제야 보면 돼. 장죽 쌤다 돈이 따와디 고할려 봐이나. 안 돼도 정말 가와이나 취치에 두고도 하다. 다 내가 제사 상만데 다 빼미지 강도 수단 줘비치 다니 균이면 다시 수단 냠도 줘봐이나 다 참마 연대는 누나 얘나다 쭌 누나 당지 랑진지라 쭌단 카쭌 로사데 랑 당진의 진진이 얘나 연대다 또그 땀 얘나라 랜들이 전죽 있음 제 얘나라데 랜들이 파친 주 조사 얘나라 랜들이 사친 뭐 통소 안돼야고도 네.
So, here, when we are able to encounter such a valid being who gives valid teaching based upon their own kind of valid understanding, when we have that opportunity to encounter such a being, whether it is like a single word of their teachings, we should strive to gain some level of understanding from that. We are incredibly fortunate to have even sort of encountered those teachings at all. And so whether it is when we have this kind of understanding of the preciousness of bodhicitta and emptiness, we will also come to recognize the importance of our own motivation. Whether we are saying like, or whether we have learned a single word of Dharma, or whether we are saying a single mantra, even if we haven't realized these things fully, to have this kind of motivation, to set our mind thinking that I'm doing these kinds of good works for the sake of myself and others. May this go, may these virtuous activities go toward the cause of liberation and omniscience. This allows whatever we sort of do. I mean, maybe we are not someone who engages in a lot of prayers or other kinds of practices, but we can habituate ourselves to this kind of attitude through whatever sort of work that we do. Maybe if we are going to our regular sort of worldly work, we can undertake that with an attitude of thinking about, may I do this, whatever work activity it is, in order to benefit others. I mean, others need food and clothing and so forth. And so those things that we produce, we can think of it as being like, may this, whatever I am doing, whatever I'm creating, be the cause of happiness for others. May they in turn, through their connection with this, have happiness. May they gain temporary and ultimate happiness. And so holding that motivation makes our virtues incredibly powerful. Whatever particular work we do, it can be the cause for liberation and omniscience if we set the proper kind of motivation. We have, when we think about our activities, the sort of preparation, our motivation, the actual activity, and then the dedication. So in this first verse where we say, with the wish to achieve the highest aim, which surpasses even a wish-fulfilling gem, I will train myself to, at all times, cherish every being as supreme. When we can really develop this kind of attitude within ourselves, and based upon reasoning, we can then get into the kind of meaning of the second verse, which says, whenever I interact with others, I will view myself as inferior to all, and I will train myself to hold others as superior from the depths of my heart. So this is, in the way that we interact with others, we shouldn't see them with competitiveness or jealousy, this kind of attitude of competing with them or wanting to better them. And it's also not as though we are putting ourselves in a really low status. Actually, to have this kind of attitude where we have reverence for all is is like the highest kind of status we could have. When you have that attitude of bodhicitta, when you have emptiness, that is what makes something precious. And so even though we are sort of placing ourselves in this kind of humble position, a position in which we see others as superior, it's actually really the state of the greatest kind of qualities. And whoever it is that we encounter, we should train ourselves to see the qualities of others and see the faults in ourselves, particularly the faults of our self-cherishing kind of attitude. And it is from seeing that fault of our self-cherishing and seeing the benefits of cherishing others, of valuing them and caring for them, it is the case that all of the things that we enjoy in terms of a worldly sense, all of our food and our clothing and so forth, is dependent upon others, dependent upon the kindness of others. And so too, when it comes to liberation and omniscience, our practice of the 6 perfections and so forth are only done in relation to other sentient beings. And really seeing and understanding their great kindness, this is the basis upon which we are able to hold others as superior, whoever we may encounter.
다 숨바데라 쩌놈 근도 랑주라스 또지 뇨모 제만타 다지 마루 제바이 젠답던 도쇼 송도와 다 딘디기 딩을 다 수수기 짐죽 세사로와 다 따와 쩌바닌데 독자 당진다 아니 당진다 딘진기 너차 시당이 니지 뱀미시 차도 진심 딘디기 소바 동에 여바데 타주 사로와 수수 용행 속으로 다 랑진진 된 다디니 따와 장보 아니 자첨보디 아니 진지 말로 로테당 아니 타입이 심제 탐제라 아니 장바다 제와 이용 된데번 딘디기 아니 심 자첨보 쥐바 자첨보 디다 뒤준도 소소 있으면 따니 디니디 도에 출을 줘도 약 출을 줘도 따시기도 수수 로한독 제냐자 관계 qabla 있나 아니 수수기 쌤데 아니 개베 출을 줘도 미개베 출을 줘도 다 동에 만들잖아 미개베 출을 줘나 저바 동에 개베 출을 줘나 저 대화디 메마고 봐라 나 디초니 인자니 아니 다시 마롱 집에다 딘디기 쳐 동행 칼 줘봐데 줘송와 있나 당진다 랑진진다 딘지다 마홈자니 슈군 줘봐 고직 아니 젠답돈 도바 가르친 젠답신 가르친 도탑지를 좀 문제 지야지 깔락하고 싶어요 내 다리 따와 장보다 줘봐 장보도 네 템바 진수나 자데 치료라면도 랑도 랑이 자 당진데 마 뒤바이나 아니 랑 셰당제서 유 두기도 랑기 차당제서디 두르기도 데니 랑 진진디 아니 아니 진 진진데 chanju기 셈줘야 돼 까용도 타입이 셈제 담제존 아니 따와 자무 쥐바 자무디 자침보 이셈 장보 덴바 디 라준숑도 세상 디니디기 배주당니 따왕님 받다 쥐방님 발리지나나 람상 chanju셈비 편 여샤제당이 님이 람상 소소 따와단 쥐발 섬다니 아니 그럼 똑바로 매버치 했송도
So then the next verse reads, "During all my activities, I will probe my mind, and as soon as an affliction arises, since it endangers myself and others, I will train myself to confront it directly and avert it." And so here, understanding how it is that a view and our conduct is what kind of determines our experience. We know that when we have a wrong view, it leads to wrong conduct, wrong ways of behaving. And so too, the kind of right view is what leads us to act in the proper way. And we can determine this through our own experience. We can, based upon looking inwardly, see that our self-cherishing is the source of all of our suffering. When we have a kind of view of other sentient beings, where we view infinite sentient beings with love and compassion and so forth, this is really the cause of our happiness. And so, as it says here in this verse, whenever we interact with others, during all of our activities, activities, we should be probing our mind. Whatever kind of comes up, we need to look at our own mind. Where is our mind going? Is it going towards something virtuous? Is it going towards something non-virtuous? And based upon our mindfulness or our awareness of the fact that virtue is what leads to happiness and non-virtue is what leads us to suffer, whatever kind of mind comes up, we need to have that awareness of it. We need to be able to avert, as it says here, directly avert, or sort of use the proper kind of even like forceful methods when we see that we have given rise to a wrong kind of view. And so it is based upon understanding what is the good view or a correct view, what is good conduct that comes based upon that. And when we have that kind of understanding, we actually come to see that there isn't some sort of enemy out there to be identified, but it is our inner enemy that we really need to take control of. We need to subdue this inner enemy of our own mind. And this is really the kind of constant practice. Whatever is arising within our own mind, we need to be aware of what it is. Is it virtuous? Is it non-virtuous? Is this coming from my self-cherishing, or is this coming from a place of cherishing others? And in this way, we train ourselves to confront and avert those kinds of afflictive minds that cause harm to ourselves and others.
다 딘디게 냠len 제 갑라 티니 지나게 자와 가리 이나 소소라 뇌제니 라워다 뉴모 툭숨 심지 뉴모 툭숨 야 랑네 에네 베 작하데세네 무스 토용니 지나 딘지 다 지바데라 랑징이 비심제나 딕동 착베 뇌 통체 rinjin tartan chebashi nyebagawi jinjinshus 딘디게 아니 소소 가랑다 진 풍아 제비지 당지 마르바이지 아니 남주영 아니 지 직주보 남주릉 햄바 아니 뱀미시게 독자 드리지 죄송하이나 아니 디 아니 뉴모 러브르바이 젠인바이 차니 아니 수수기 델라베 아니 남주릉 햄바다 직주보 칸레 마임바 아니 디 당들라니지 아지 딘저기 코랑라 동네 시우즈 요래 아니 베 she당 랑르 되는 거 셈지부 매바다 she당게 팡지 주 년송라 아니 베 지나서 보인바다 아니 단다 아니 지 뇌세기 유와연바 있나 아니 델베 소수기 가르쳐다 베 니바가비 진진진 소수기 베 당들라니지 다티니 가고 시라즈레 첸 소수기 간인세나 소수기 당진다 진진라 같이만 슉충으로 따야지 다 섭다 된 거라 딘지 취젠체우나 아니 딜라 소소지 냠네 제도나 아니 다 뭐마데려와 진진 강양마지 지보체 테네 당진 진진 매와서 가차 그래 듣고 당진 가서서 차도 랑진진 가서도 아니 제예네 동행이 취용도 되나라 아니 오 동반이 배주치 장주기 셈평 배주치 잠조 랍샤시 배주치용도 아니 배데 니바가 배지 가르쳐놓고 자친부 힘바지 문진친 수수기 아니 수수기 너무 충분줘야 제 너무이 차진데야 양 아니 고 가르쳐로디 람도알 마임바 야가라 아니 고 그바직 도와 자친부지 용도 야
So, when it says then next, when I encounter beings of unpleasant character and those oppressed by intense negative karma and suffering, as though finding a treasure of precious jewels, I will train myself to cherish them, for they are so rarely found. So when we are practicing in this way and we see other beings who are maybe acting in kind of uncouth, unruly sorts of ways, doing things that are bringing about their suffering, we should use this as an opportunity to recognize that this kind of activity, those who are, again, engaged in their kind of afflictive emotions, are bringing ruin to themselves and others. When we come under the control of this self-cherishing attitude, that is what brings these kinds of suffering results to us. And so we should recognize as well that it isn't in the nature of those beings' minds to be somehow afflicted, but rather it's temporary, adventitious kinds of stains or faults that are polluting the mind that has this kind of clear nature, this pure nature. And so when we observe other sentient beings acting in this way, we should be willing to sort of take that up, see them as an object of compassion, thinking that, wow, due to their self-cherishing, due to that kind of strong grasping at a self, they are creating all of these causes for their future suffering. And so whatever bad behaviors, we shouldn't react in kind or sort of get angry, but rather this is the time when we actually need to practice. When we meet with those conditions is when we need to apply our practice and be able to look at that being who is acting badly and see them with compassion rather than react in kind. This is when we need to use emptiness to understand the nature of things as being lacking any kind of inherent existence or any sort of real self. It's not as though we can practice when we have like ideal conditions and nothing is wrong, nothing is bothering us. We might think we are a great practitioner, but really it is those times when we have the opportunity to reduce our own self-cherishing and our own self-grasping that we need to take advantage of that, actually use that. And when we see another being acting badly in this way, we can take it as a cue that we need to work on our own, reducing our self-cherishing and self-grasping.
하소 다 뒤주시라면도와 다 내나진다 달라 진지 차도게 시글라 소면시 종가랑기네만 자가진은 도바쇼 라야 대양 다가 전 진심 차도 이제 잼베지 미시나나 여러 내 참으로 아니지 따와정보다 쥐바정보 니추응하니 아니 당돌라야 대양 아니 차도는 진심 마치바 마치 봐 ndin지 당돌라야 대양 소소 레다 준제 니승은 세코와 토마 메바니야 소소 레다 몸부지 열리 아니 베틱집 장향지 도절로에 차규열라니 아니 소소 아니지 낙심 느심 록다 차도 파 나지 마베 체들라 안테도 정말로요 저 당들레니 전주 있습니다 돈이지 지진송아이나 당들레 마트바 가야요 말봐
So we don't have a great deal of time, but we'll move to the next verse when it says, when others out of jealousy treat me wrongly with abuse and slander, I will train to take the defeat upon myself and offer the victory to others. So here within the context of understanding what is good conduct and what is a good sort of a good view, we also come to when others in those situations where others get jealous or competitive and so forth, we need to learn to be able to sort of willingly take that on, understanding this kind of causality. We don't respond in kind, but rather use this as an opportunity, seeing that it is due to our various karma and afflictions that this person is acting in this way, acting with jealousy or competitiveness or doing something that is harmful. And so we need to then train our minds in being able to take that on, whatever sort of abuse or slander or things that others might do to us, recognizing that it is coming from their own being under their control of the afflictions. We should be willing to take that on or not sort of respond in kind.
맞아치면 잔자리시다 빠지 받제고나 현다 뒤주야면도 야고시게 말이니 강라다기 펜다베 레와치 왕가지 신도 미릭뇌지나 신년 담바다와쇼 한직 수수기에다 밤일 자침부 제와나 큰가를 마음 바라 주주야고 용은 딘디지 레와메바 딘디 마세 미시 추 틀린 롱질라기도 하면서 미시 독자 할레베 신나서들이 제니들이 여러 봐야보시는 추 독자 질용 다시 한 수수기 취치에 냠는데 냠양이 년가 여자니 아니 디수수기 봐야보지야라 추 틀린지야지 삼노아 매바 대 미시 독자치에 대랑 아니 랑기 신이 담바다 와슈 덴데송도 데네 수수기 시당 짜토바슈 더샤다 짜토바슈 디묵 짜토바슈라니 chanjusim 돈인 따와 낭수니 수트중하네 아니 신이 담바 다투그러 다투바슈는 마음자야 디가네 무슨 따라 chanju기심다 돈이 따와지 시랍 배주 땅와이나 아니 딩가서 다투그러 디 시랍 디 배주 땅 마도와이나 다니 땅 가서 냠네 제제 데니 돈이 무슨 마도와이나 아니 개별로 몸부직 시당 찍인 좀로 인자 신나 좀 차그러 대승아 인자 다 잡자무시 제는 소소기 지 자와지 제바이나 아니 담대 제도 메베토니 독자지 제바이나 아니 당들랑야 창물로 제 토비아당 파친도데 응수자 토비알라 아니 전주기 셈당 돈이 다와 시럽 짜지 뭐 되게 좋진 아니 참바데 제벨로기 아니 탑 제바이나 안 수술라 강이 가르지나 쟁에 조스자와서 응그러와
So these are all really precious verses with very precious advice, and we don't have time to get into all of the nuances of them. But here in the next verse where it says, even if one whom I have helped or in whom I placed great hopes, I have placed great hope, gravely mistreats me in hurtful ways, I will train myself to view him as my sublime teacher. And so here, these, again, are things that we need to put into practice, because if we don't have this kind of attitude, say when we benefit or help others, and we have an attitude of expecting something in return for that, some kind of reward for that, there is the danger of our practice degenerating, because we aren't going to experience gratitude from every being that we try to help. So really, it is within an understanding of emptiness and bodhicitta, if we act from that kind of place, in a sense, trying to benefit others without thinking of ourselves, within that recognition of this bodhicitta attitude and an understanding of emptiness, then we can help them in a way that we're not sort of clinging after getting something in return. But if we don't, and here it applies to whatever kind of virtue we engage in, if those virtues are not held by an understanding of emptiness, if they're not held by emptiness and bodhicitta in particular, then they are subject to being destroyed. A single moment of anger can destroy so much of our virtue if we haven't infused it with emptiness, that understanding of emptiness. And so here, whatever we do for others, whatever sort of ways in which we aid or help them, we should do so in a way that we don't expect something in return. We're not looking for some kind of a reward. And we should do this kind of practice in a way where we hold it with emptiness and bodhicitta. We're not going to, in this way, then we are able to see someone who harms us in return for our help as being like a virtuous spiritual friend, as someone that is able to actually teach us and help us improve our practice. And so here, we can't do this just by making prayers, just by thinking it, just by wanting it, but rather we have to use our own kind of discriminating intelligence, our own wisdom, and this attitude of bodhicitta is something that needs to be developed through our kind of mental work. We can't just pray for it.
Dharma nga samjubaye pendeman gunanda maine da dongil gun samenda narimasho sada Dharma nga sam ju karezina da pembada dewayo so manangata nyambe simjen tamjila pugin dia ani mipa mibingani ninji chimbo jingani ani jawanjeba 아니 대남기 랑도르기 니 친지로바 아니 로위기 자와 용수 조바 아니 랑기 동네기 미비츠네 주 레네 다 대아양 렌차다 렌치 라네 다지 nga 가르조로 다지 믹차다 믹치 용수 조바 아니 다레 응라 주바나지 아니 타저 웅메 다와기 시럽 피도 중원디 인간이 삼노즈 땅와이나 아니 딘디지 미치다 미치 줘야 돼야 안 수수 다케 정도야지 지여 말아봐 대니 동배 차니 아니 덴중 요소바 타르바다 아니지 탐지 쳔바다 아니 코르바라야 돼 돈이 인상 아니 정말 중국어로 대 인자네 대 동네 미고 자첨보 지체 니네 대다 아니 균장 취지지 또 데미마바지 추균 좀 하셔야지 지미칭을 해주쇼.
Yeah. So then next it says, in brief, I will train myself to offer benefit and joy to all my mothers, both directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all the hurts and pains of my mothers. And so here, whether it is directly benefiting other sentient beings or indirectly, we should have this thought of, I'm giving all of this to all sentient beings. And we should look at them in a way that we're not objectifying them or reifying them as being truly existent. existent. And so in this verse expressing giving and taking, we express this wish to be able to take upon ourselves, taking on all the kinds of sufferings and negativities of all sentient beings. And in this way, we are also cognizant of the one who is taking this on, and the thing being taken on, that suffering, are not actually truly existent. As it continues sort of in the next verse, that we should ensure that all this remains undefiled from the stains of the 8 mundane concerns. And by understanding all things as illusions, I will train myself to be free of the bondage of clinging. And so recognizing that this view of emptiness, within this kind of understanding of emptiness as being not reifying or objectifying things, that this kind of state of emptiness, free of any elaboration, all of samsara and nirvana arises from within that sphere of emptiness, possesses that nature of emptiness. And so coming to that kind of understanding of things as lacking the kind of existence that we ascribe to them, as it says here, I will train myself to be free of the bondage of clinging.
다 딘디게 추 가서로 동아에 아니 지 남자 남이 남자 디비 남자 용수도 한듯이 제바이나 아니 추지지 아니 당진다 랑진진이 추지지 롱이 만들베 토니 되니 수수기 심디나라 아니 당지 추지지 롱이 제송이나 추제바 이나 그 종년다고 되니 제브디 동네만도 용거 말와 배신나서 차도 아니 추근 주만다비 토니 아니 닝지라나 메빙하네 아니 가서로다 개방어야 당 텐지린도 추근 주마지 똑비 팀에 마번신 추근 주마 시빌로 예미 징완 레주쇼 당진의 진진이 아니 셴바이 징완 틸레 전에 아니 추니 아니 가서로 저지지 대코나니 이가네 아니 mikpa chuni jilone ane semjen tamjela ane zewa chembe tuda number kundola ane tap zewa chembo tang ane shira mikpa meni dini zongjer dola ane tarbata tamji chembe kombala ane dhruyazi rindo insari da dini ma dishi semikse juya chungma zong konda tizu jembe ran rawazi imbache ane ngazo nyamdo lama ji sarji ma dönyen choso ane tizu digirwe.
So here, I haven't been able to give a great extensive commentary on this because of the lack of time. But here, whatever sort of practice we are engaging in of Dharma, the Sutra, the Tantra, whatever it may be, we should be careful that none of this is brought about by our kind of self-cherishing, our self-grasping kind of attitude. If our practices are coming from that place, then they become sort of like a reflection, like a likeness of practice, but not really bringing about this sort of good thing that we want. And so as it says here, by ensuring that all this remains undefiled from the stains of the 8 mundane concerns, and by understanding all things as illusions, I will train myself to be free of the bondage of clinging. So here, getting freed of this bondage of clinging, our clinging to a self and this kind of self-cherishing attitude, when we transcend that such that we are not grasping on to anything as being truly existent. From within that sphere of emptiness, you have this kind of method side. From within that aspect of emptiness, one arises in the various sort of methods or forms in order to benefit, to bring about the benefit for other sentient beings. And so one understands this kind of union of bodhicitta and emptiness, and it is from within that state that we try to bring about the liberation and omniscience of other sentient beings. So here, because of the shortness of time, we won't have time for any more kind of commentary to this, but I would like to recite all of these together once.
Lasso, dandini, geshe lang tarwa, torji singi sungdoa. Dini dan dippe misi zachi murindoa la. Lasso dasha shetang timuk mewa soya. Ani, chanju ki sim cheya la, ta lo jangya la, kale, pe.
So this is something very precious in terms of being able to eliminate our three poisons, our various afflictions, and being able to give rise to bodhicitta. So recognizing how precious this is, let's recite this together. So let's please recite together.
Dane semjin tamje elai jin no lelai bi ten chon zhun bi samba ayin da du jian ba zhu kan tu su tang zhu yu ye qian da ni gun li men da yi yin la san pa ta ba ai chu do jin ba jin ba shu jin lang gun tu ran ju la do jin yu mo jin ma ta da jin ma ru jin be na jin ta do ni do ba ju ran jin bi sim jin nam dik dong chang pu ne tong che rin jin der tang che ba a xin ye ba ga bi jian jin xiu da la jian qi cha tu ki shi gu la sun mi rin bin chung ka ran ki lim ba tan je ka jin la bu wa shu kan la da ki pen da an bi re wa che wa kan yin ge xin de mi rin ne che na xin ye ta shu do na nge sa ju ba ai pen de ma na gu la bu mai ne ta do nge gu sa ve da la le ba shu ten ta ge jang shu ji ji do be che mi ma ba shi chu ge ju ma shi be lu ye me che wa le chu shu naso katin che tini arumchi yang sirumchi tuji katin la tene nga so lo jong chi je ma je ya ji ra su an chen no ba chang ma lo chen nang chang ma ge ani se ya dang ani ko gap je ya dang ani ji jun ro ani chap ji yong su zo ba la xin de ni ka tin che ni ta ba tu ji che ju ge an te tham ji ne sang ji ji tem ba ani tar ba dang sim ji ji de ji yong han zam ling ne muk thuk su ma yong wa zai xi pu sum so we to la ma lam ji ju ro na ngo ma lam na na su ro na ko che ring.
So, thank you to everybody. It is due to the kindness, the great kindness of Yangtze Rinpoche that we are able to be here having these teachings on the 8 verses of training the mind. And so I would like to thank all of the sort of students and helpers and followers, all of these people that made this opportunity possible. And we should take the time now to make a good dedication, dedicating toward the flourishing of the Buddha's teachings, that all auspicious conditions may come about and so forth. So let's together make a good dedication.
We'll begin with the prayers for the long life of His Holiness found in the Pecha on page 22. Gang re ra we ko we jing kam dir hendang de wa ma lu jung we ne chen re ding wan ten zen ya so yi Japen si te baradu ten yuchi. And then we'll return to the teaching booklet to recite in English Khandrola's long life prayer found on page 25. The enlightened activity of the victorious mothers for the sake of taking care of all of inferior fortune born at the end of the greatly degenerate time, taking an ordinary aspect endowed with the deeds of the conquerors. Venerable Tara, we request you to have a long life and pray that your wishes are spontaneously attained. Your fame pervades the 3 worlds, liberated from the suffering of bad migrations, attain to enlightenment, bestowing the Dharmakaya of great bliss to Supreme Mila, acting as companion and knowledge woman, Trashi Tsaringma, a long and stable life, spontaneous achievement of wishes, We make this request. Please bless us. We all make this request from our heart. The channels, constitutes, and bodhicitta are blessed by countless dakinis. Innate great bliss, a subtle completion stage is induced, and one is established in the supreme state of the Dharmakaya. Kadro Bumkit Somo, abide long. We pray that your wishes are spontaneously attained. We and all migrators since beginningless time have followed the bewilderment of true grasping, coming under the power of others. By apprehending all mistaken appearances as true, we are oppressed until now by the ocean of sufferings. Supreme wisdom, seeing everything is empty. Namsel Drome, abide in a long life. We pray so that your wishes are spontaneously attained. All the destitute migrators bound by karma and afflictions, although it is difficult to do them all, you generate greatly the mind of patience and compassion. Jet Sundang Mema, Lama Maitripa's secret consort, holy and supreme, abide in a long life. May wishes be spontaneously attained. Thus we pray respectfully from our hearts. The Indian great Pandit, kind to Tibet, the lotus-born, you blessed him, bringing to exhaustion the 84,000 afflictions. This holy Dharma is like the rays of the sun, great kindness pervading all the world, acting as a companion of great bliss, supreme Yeshi Tsogel. Abide in long life. May wishes be spontaneously attained. We make this request. Please bless us. Dedication of the merits of having composed this prayer, having supported me with kindness since beginningless time, for all migrators destitute and oppressed by suffering. May Venerable Tara act as a spiritual master. May they soon come to touch the ground of our four bodies. And then turning back to the Pecha on page 19, we'll conclude with our dedication prayers.
Jantu Centurim Poche Mache Panam Che Gyurche Jewanyam Pame Payang Gone Gondu Pewasho Jampel Pawujita Chimpadang Kuntu Zangpo de Yande Jinte Deda Kunji Jesu Daluchir Gewa de Daktam Cheratung Dusum Shepe Gawa Tam Chegi Ngowagan La Chutu Ngapade Dagege with sawa de kunjang Jampo chuchiratung. Due to the merits accumulated over the 3 times, and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas which are empty from their own side, may the I who is empty from its own side achieve the state of enlightenment which is empty from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are empty from their own side to that state as quickly as possible by myself alone. Because of all the merits of the 3 times created by me and all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other sentient beings, may there be no wars, famines, disease, quarreling, fighting, or unhappy minds. May there be great prosperity, and may everything needed be easily obtained. May all the human beings in the world be guided by spiritual leaders teaching only Dharma, and may everyone enjoy the happiness of Dharma.
Thank you.